All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. Have the Wednesday live stream here for you guys, and it is already a chaotic slate. We got some Toronto news. Pascal Siakam has been traded to the Pacers, so we might have some Toronto value. And then we just got news that Giannis is out for the Bucks. So going to be an interesting slate. How much does that change everything for you already, Chuck?
The Toronto stuff, it changed a little bit, but not too much. But like we were having a discussion in the Discord right before the Giannis and Boston news that like how do we fade Joe Ingles and then to a lesser extent Jonathan Isaac, and then we got the news, so we have some value now. So it changes the entire slate literally.
Yeah, we'll start with Toronto just because we had that news the earliest, and the ownership and whatnot. All the data coming in should be more accurate for that game, and then. I guess the unfortunate news as well, the Golden State, that game got postponed due to their assistant coach passing away, actually, which is a crazy situation as a whole. So, yeah, kind of crazy stuff there. But, yeah, if you guys have any of those players in your builds, get those out. But we'll start with Toronto here. So looking at right now, no one is actually – oh, I got San Antonio pulled up. My bad. I was going to say no one's chalked. That doesn't make sense. But, yeah, looking at Toronto here, quickly, Barrett – Schroeder, no one is really chalk on DraftKings. FanDuel, Dennis is a little bit chalky. What are your thoughts for Toronto here? Are you ending up on three of them, two of them? Kind of what is your exposure right now?
So I am playing on both sites tonight, and I'm only playing on FanDuel because I wanted to fade Joe Ingles, but now he's probably not going to be the chalk anymore. But I'm getting Dennis Schroeder on both sites, pretty highly exposed. Thaddeus Young on both sites, quickly. RJ Barrett, and then I feel like I kind of want to play a little Scotty Barnes, but his usage has been down quite a bit since RJ Barrett and quickly came to town. And then I still have interest in Jonte Porter if he's going to come in very low owned, but that's more a FanDuel play or a DraftKings play. I'm sorry, not getting there over on FanDuel. But yeah, lots of pieces of these Toronto mid range guys.
Yeah. So what happens if Porter is confirmed starting? Are you playing him? Like, what are you doing? If it's Thad Young starting, are you playing him? Is it Porter? Are you playing him, or does that not matter too much for you?
I think I'm going to play Thad Young either way on both sides, and then Jonte Porter, I'll have more interest over on DraftKings. I need to check what his price is because his price is pretty decent on FanDuel if he's starting, but it's such a large slate. And you guys know I don't love playing these cheap centers. I mean, he's shown a little bit of a ceiling, but I don't know that he has a 40-point ceiling, or he hasn't displayed it yet anyway. So I probably won't get to Jonte on FanDuel either way. But over on FanDuel, he's 4,300. I'm sorry, I'm going to mix up the sites all day. Over on DraftKings, Jonte Porter is 4,300. So I don't mind taking some shots over there since we can play two of these guys.
Yeah, and then before we get into the Bucks, do want to mention that Jayhawk took down a GPP yesterday as well. So
I lost you.
We kind of did you? That's all right. I'll switch back. But all of us have now taken down a GPP, so it's pretty awesome. That not only is what we're saying working, but it's just kind of nice to have that happen. So obviously, we don't know for sure whenever that's going to hit. It's just kind of a long-term thing. But shout out to Jayhawk for taking out GPP. I heard his takes on Christian Braun yesterday. I probably should have got more of him, but very good job in the Discord chat yesterday as well. So, but yeah, moving on to the Bucks. Just want to give them a shout out there. Looking at it right now, no one is too chalky just yet. I imagine this is going to change because Lillard is too cheap, Middleton's too cheap, Beasley probably properly priced. But then we got to worry about Andre Jackson, Cameron Payne. You also have Jake Crowder back tonight, but he's going to be on a minutes limit, which is. If he wasn't, oh, man. And then Bobby Portis, I think a lot of people are going to go there. And Brook, I mean, really, I could make an argument for maxing out the Bucks tonight and then just filling in with some of the Raptors. What are your kind of initial thoughts here?
Well, one thing, keep in mind, if you're using the model right after the news breaks, a lot of times the minutes are off. Like a few minutes ago, Damian Lillard was projected for 42. I just refreshed. Now he's for 38, which is a little bit more accurate. So definitely always wait a few minutes on that stuff. But I was already interested in Malik Beasley as like a low-owned value piece. Hopefully he still stays low-owned because I'm still going to be pretty interested. I mean, Giannis not playing is just so much usage opening up for everyone else. I'd like to think the main beneficiary is Bobby Portis, but that hasn't come to fruition every single time Giannis has been out. But it makes sense, right? That he's going to get more minutes. I would imagine he starts, but it wouldn't be a surprise if he comes off the bench just to maintain that, starters and bench roles, whatever. But Middleton, too cheap on FanDuel. Damian Lillard, too cheap on both sites. Brooke Lopez looks great. I mean, Malik Beasley, if he's still going to come in as low owned as the model showing, even after the update, then I'm going to look to him as a low owned value piece.
Yeah.
For like Andre Jackson, I mean, yeah, his usage probably goes up, and he's basically mid price on both sides. So, going to have a little interest in him, just kind of like what you and Nick were talking about yesterday, where they don't have to go off. It's a larger slate, so it's a little bit more difficult to accomplish that. But if he just lets you fit in the high price guys that do go off, then it can work out still.
Yeah, and personally to me, just to kind of tally off the Bucks there, I actually think I might, if it wasn't going against Cleveland, I would really love Brooke Lopez. But because it's Cleveland, I still feel like he's a great play. I want to end up on him. Like I probably would, I don't like to use the lock word, but I probably would have been jamming it in. But literally because it's Cleveland going against Jared Allen, I don't like it as much. But for what that's worth, I still probably will be going crazy on him at 6.1. But value-wise, I'm curious if Andre Jackson's going to start, because if he does, then obviously it becomes much more appealing.
Yeah, I mean, we already have projected for, I guess, just 17 minutes. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to start. I imagine if he is starting, though, then the model's going to give him a few more minutes. We do have Pat Connaughton for 23 minutes, and he's probably going to stay low-owned either way. And I hear you kind of grody. Like, it's kind of a gross play, Pat Connaughton.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's a low-owned value shot on a slate where the value, it was already chalky before the news. I imagine it's still going to stay chalky now. It's not Joe Ingles and Jonathan Isaac anymore.
Yeah. And so let's actually jump into Orlando a little bit here as well, just to kind of touch on Orlando and kind of why some of those plays were pulling in as good values, because not too much change. I mean, Gary Harris is out, Wagner's out. It was just that they were too cheap, and they're still kind of chalk right now, not exactly projected to get the most minutes. So is that just a situation where to start the day it was the best value and people were going out of their way to get there, and now that, and obviously Atlanta helps. But is this one of those situations where we're expecting this to really get reduced down to maybe single digits even, or is this going to stay at least like 10-15% for those two?
I feel like they're still going to have a double-digit ownership, but they came down already kind of dramatically from what we had even just 30 minutes ago before we got that other news. And it's just, I mean, you can't really project these guys for more than 20 minutes. Like Joe Ingles, 20-minute projection, sure. Jonathan Isaac, 15 minutes projection. That sounds pretty correct. And Jonathan Isaac over on FanDuel, I was going to be slightly more interested because he gets an extra point for blocks and steals. But now it's like, I don't know, if their ownership comes way down, I'm actually going to be slightly interested in them. But I imagine that they're still going to hold quite a bit of ownership. And it doesn't make that much sense to me. Earlier, it was just desperation. I mean, I clicked them out of my builds, and instead of, I wasn't getting as many top end guys. I was getting so much more in the mid range, and then a lot of the gross, other fringe value plays. But now it's not necessary. So.
We do have some Boston news as well, so we know that Derek White and Porzingis is going to be out, so let's kind of pivot on into there for the next kind of news segments. Does that make you interested in Drew Holiday, who's really cheap? Maybe Jaylen Brown, maybe Al Horford. Sam Hauser, very cheap. Payton Pritchard. I mean, I feel like they're all somewhat in play. It just seems like we have so much pretty darn good value. That's my issue with going to the Orlando value, because we could easily do a fair and balanced build, not even have to worry about going sub 4K. But if we are, I probably like Pritchard, Hauser, like Beauchamp, someone we didn't mention. I would rather maybe take a risk with him, and then Jackson I think is going to be good. But what are your kind of thoughts on, maybe we'll start with Sam Hauser and Pritchard as they're starting to get ownership, don't get me wrong, but as a better, safer value play as those two?
So like Sam Hauser kind of failed last time when he was the chalk. And the problem with this game now is it's a 16-point spread. And so not only are they good value plays, even without blowout run, but we're in blowout territory. And so we can project a couple minutes of blowout. And guys like Peyton Pritchard, 4K on DraftKings, I hate playing him unless Derek White or Drew Holiday's out. And we have that exact situation today. So Peyton Pritchard is definitely in play. Sam Hauser, I mean, the minutes are probably there. We haven't projected for 29, but he's such a poor fantasy producer. But I mean, if he gets that blowout run, then it's okay. I'm looking at Luke Cornett, going to come in with much lower ownership. We only have him projected for 11 minutes, but I feel like he would get some blowout run. He's got to play some minutes in the regular time. And then Al Horford's going to be a pretty good beneficiary of Porzingis being out. Yeah. And this 10% on DraftKings at 5,500, sign me up. I'm going to be way over on Al Horford. And then Drew Holiday, So he had a blow up game last time. I think people were kind of getting off of him, but he finally had a really, really good game with everybody in. And so people are going to hop on him today. But yeah, he's too cheap on DraftKings. And then Brown and Tatum, they're pay up studs. I think it's fine. But I think my strategy today is going to be get some more of everyone else and then get studs from the other teams. But Tatum and Brown both still look good.
Yeah, honestly, in this matchup, I really like Drew Holiday. You talked me into a lot of Payton Pritchard and Al Horford. Like, just given their prices, it's tough for me to imagine them not hitting value in this game. And so, oh god, it's a tough slate in the fact that it feels super easy. Like, there's just too many good plays right now, which does happen on 10-game slates. But I'm probably gonna have too many lineups going tonight. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, dude, I wouldn't have even played on FanDuel today if I had known this stuff was going to happen. So now I have to worry about managing 2 sites, which it's really difficult on days we do the stream because I only get a half hour after the stream ends to work on it. But I tried to finish as much as I could. Was waiting for the model to update, so we'll try and get it done.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, we don't have too much other injury news. We can go in and get into the guards. Do just kind of want to mention we are waiting on LeBron news. He seems like an actual game time decision, as well as Luka Doncic. They seem like actual game time decisions. And then a big one to me is, I believe they're on the main slate. Portland, they're on the main slate, right?
I think so. Yeah, last game of the night.
Are they? Well, maybe not.
Oh no, on DraftKings they're not.
FanDuel they are though. Or no?
No, I made that mistake. Yeah, they're off the main slate. So why did I spend time on them today?
Well, I was gonna say Simons and Brogdon being out would make me love playing some Scoot Henderson tonight. So I honestly hate that they do that, especially on big slates. Like if it's like yesterday, I would have been actually more happy with them. I know Nick or Jayhawk wouldn't have been, but I'd have been more happy with them kicking off the late night game instead. But we'll go in again to the top guard plays for tonight's slates. Guys, I can't pull up the comments right now, so if you have any questions, we'll try to check it periodically, but I can't pull them up right now. So yeah, we'll go ahead and jump on into the guard plays here. In just a second, are there any questions that you see by chance that we can answer?
Regular viewer Jose Morales shared the winning lineup. Hey man, if I could do that, I wouldn't be on the show. We'll try to give you the keys, get some good combinations. Value from Toronto. I think there's better value elsewhere. Toronto value is okay. I think Toronto, we want to focus more on the mid-range guys, Quickly and Barrett. And then do we like Gobert tonight on DraftKings? Yeah, I love Gobert at that cheap price against the Pistons. It's not as much of a problem that he's in the first game since we already got a lot of the good value news. And so I love mixing in Gobert. Yeah, that'll do it.
Okay. So yeah, moving on to the guards here. Sorting it by OF index, it's Luka and then it's Lillard. That kind of seems to be the easy route. And then Chris Middleton as well. Maybe a little bit of Terry Rozier. His price is coming down. But when you sort it by DK value, I feel like that's a better route to go, at least tonight, because it's looking like Pitchard. It's looking like Drew. It's looking like Lillard. Maybe Beasley. Maybe Middleton. Kyle Lowry. That's ugly popping up in there with Hawkes out maybe. I don't know. And then Russell would become a good play. I want to get your thoughts on this because, if LeBron's out, I like D'Angelo Russell, but if he's active, that feels ugly at 30%.
I keep making jokes with my friends. Like, this team lives and dies by D'Angelo shooting threes, and it's kind of true. Sometimes he saves us, sometimes he buries us, but 30%, 28%, I imagine that'll adjust with the news that we just got, but if LeBron's out and D'Angelo's starting, if D'Angelo's starting either way, he's a fine play. I think this ownership's probably too high if LeBron is in, but if LeBron's out, then it's probably closer to appropriate.
Yeah. And then we got Dennis Schroeder kind of pulling in as chalk as well. I feel like he probably would have been somewhat high owned regardless, but that seems lower than I would have thought at 21 and 39%. Ant-Man is pulling in as chalk, matchup-based chalk, going against Detroit. I don't mind that. Who are you prioritizing the most? Because RJ Barrett's popping up in there as not too high owned. I know he's a little bit shot dependent, but I could make a case that we are getting some decent leverage here as well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how the ownership shakes out, but all these guys at the top from Boston and Milwaukee look great. Kyle Lowry, 4,100. It's gross to play Kyle Lowry, but when he's 4,100, I think we have to pay attention to that, especially if we're playing some Toronto guys. Makes a little bit more sense. Love that Terry Rozier call as a low owned GPP play, even with LaMelo back at 1% owned. Model saying he's good value. I think we should listen. Ant Edwards against the Pistons, particularly on DraftKings at 8,300
Yeah.
sounds great. Donovan Mitchell, I'm interested in on both sites, wondering what his ownership's going to do now that we have a little bit more value. It's easier to get to him.
Mhm.
And then, I was getting to a bit of Mike Conley. So it looks like at the guard position, I'm mostly riding with the chalk. Maybe I try and get different at the other positions.
Yeah, I don't see a reason to fade the chalk. I mean, I personally probably won't be getting to that much like Jalen Green or Mike Conley probably tonight, or even Donovan Mitchell, but they're lower owned. Like I'm probably just literally just eating the chalk there, and I think we're good to move on into the forwards with that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and we have a Suggs Orlando versus Atlanta. It's tough for me to get into Suggs just because for some reason his minutes seem kind of capped. He's a great fantasy point per minute guy, but we only have him predicted for 26 minutes. It is a high paced game against Atlanta, but the total is weirdly low at 230. And so if he's your GPP shot, I don't mind it, but he's not going to be a big part of anything I'm doing on either side.
Yeah, I'm sick of Orlando with their minutes because it's just like if Fultz is out and Cole Anthony's out, you're just loading up on Suggs and kind of whoever's if the two of them are out, you're just loading up on the other one. But with them all healthy, it's just you can't really play any of them on any nights, almost regardless of price. That's not true, but
And good transition into forwards. I will say I love Paolo as a pay up GPP shot tonight. Probably still going to get to a little Ingles and a little. I don't want to play Isaac, but I might get to a little Ingles still. But Paolo is my main target over on Orlando.
is that just a matchup based thing going against Atlanta? And is it more of a DraftKings player or is it both sides? Because he's a little bit higher priced on FanDuel, but he's coming in a little bit higher owned.
So the ownership, yeah, it's a large slate, and his ownership is 20% basically on both
Yeah.
sites. But he's displayed such a high ceiling that I don't mind playing him regardless of matchup. And then this is a good matchup for him against Atlanta. So
Yeah. Yeah, we saw him really get heavy minutes with Wagner out right away and really be consistent fantasy producer. Kind of tailed off a little bit, but it really wouldn't be shocking to see him put up 50 like he was for, 4 games in a row with Wagner out. So, yeah, I don't mind that call. Let's see here. Sorting it by OF index right now. AD's the best forward, then Tatum, then LeBron. Wemby popping up in there, and then you have Chris Middleton. So I really don't think this. I mean, he's going to be chalk, I would assume, but he's only 3% owned, Chris Middleton, right now on DraftKings, and 24% on FanDuel. If that stays below 30, and I know he's priced up, but I'm going to be way overweight on him then, I think. Let's get your first thoughts with Middleton, and then the rest of the players that are popping up on the OF index.
So Middleton over on FanDuel, I wasn't able to update my stuff because we just had gotten the news, but
Yeah.
he's going to be one of my highest owned players. Just 7,100. It's just too easy of a play for me. Over on DraftKings 7,600, I'm interested because he's 3%. Not sure I'll get to as much. Like it's a tougher matchup against Cleveland, but in situations like this, he's also too cheap for if Giannis is out, and that might sound kind of weird because Chris Middleton 7,600 on DraftKings, but like if we knew Giannis was going to be out, his appropriate price would be in the 8Ks, and so I don't really care about the matchup. I'm going to be taking shots on him as a pretty decent GPP shot.
Yeah, and again, the model really is favoring him, so that seems like a big leverage spot there. It also is favoring Jalen Johnson, who a little bit annoying as a fantasy producer because he can go off if he consistently gets the minutes. The question is, can he give us those consistent minutes? He has been doing it lately, but do we trust him, I guess, is the biggest issue because he is priced up enough now, and he's going against Orlando. That has been difficult, but the last time he went against Orlando, 40 minutes, 33 fantasy points, so not terrible. What are you doing with Jalen Johnson? He's popping up as one of the better values as well.
So this is Orlando is one of the tougher matchups, not because of like they're good on defense, but they play at a slower pace, and so this does hurt the Hawks. But the model's telling me to play Jalen Johnson. He's currently one of my highest exposed players on both sites. He's very boomer bust. Might give you 50, and he might not. But the days he gives you 50 and you play a bunch of them, you're going to be in a good spot to win a GPP, especially when he's this low owned. And so, yeah, model's telling me we should play Jalen Johnson today, and I'm going to listen. Probably a little bit too much. I'm definitely playing way too much Jalen Johnson today, but I'm okay with it. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, I still have the other half of my lineup set that can hopefully do something.
Yeah. So I am seeing the Boston Bigs pulling in as the two best values, Sam Hauser and Al Horford. Sam Hauser kind of chalk at 25%, but Al Horford, and he's 5.5 on DraftKings, only 10%, and we got him projected to get 31 minutes. To me, that's another pretty darn good leverage spot. And again, this could update, but what are your thoughts on that? Because that ownership seems vastly too low at 5.5 for him, where you can also play him at the power forward spot on DraftKings.
So I'm playing all the Al Horford, and he's a way better play than Sam Hauser. Yeah, we can do something with that 1600. But if Sam Hauser is going to come in with much higher ownership, it's a leverage thing. And Al Horford is great when Porzingis is out. It's a cake matchup against San Antonio. Yeah, Wemby's over there, but like I kind of dove into this a couple weeks ago, and Wemby, like he's a great defensive player, great presence on the court, but he doesn't necessarily stop the big men on the other teams from scoring fantasy points. And so we shouldn't fear that. And he doesn't draw fouls. There's not really a fear of foul trouble here with Al Horford. Like, yeah, something could happen, but if he's going to stay this low owned, he's one of the best plays on the slate. We only have him predicted for 30 minutes anyway. So the blowout, sure, if he loses his fourth quarter rotation, it hurts a little bit, but it's not as big of a deal as losing the fourth quarter rotation for Tatum and Brown.
Does he? I off the top of my head, I thought he started typically the fourth quarter. I could be wrong, though.
Al Horford?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this thing. So let's say he starts fourth quarter, comes out, and then I don't know if he's been closing games or not, probably dependent on the game flow. But it's just, we haven't predicted for 30, so he'll play 8 or 9 minutes in the first quarter, come back with 7 minutes left in the second quarter, 16, get another 9. So maybe he loses 5 minutes. If it's a massive blowout, he'll only play 25. But even if we had him projected for 25 minutes at this price, even over on FanDuel, I'm still going to be interested. He's a really good fantasy producer. And like I said, San Antonio, Wemby's great, but it's still a good fantasy matchup.
Yes. And let's talk about Wemby just real quick as well, because he is 8.7 on DraftKings, 10.1 on FanDuel, so a very big pricing discrepancy. We have him actually projected to get 27.5 minutes tonight. It's not a good matchup, but he is someone that has proven that he can go off on limited minutes. It's been, 4 straight games of nearly 50 fantasy points, or I guess 5. He's been crushing it, and they've been difficult matchups against Milwaukee, Cleveland, Detroit. He did well against, Charlie did well against, and Atlanta. I know the last slate I didn't want to be on Wemby, and you said you stuck to it. You said you're going to be on him. What is your thoughts on Wemby tonight? Because he's difficult.
Yeah, the 10K on FanDuel, I mean, that he's not on that hard 24-minute cap anymore. I mean, it's better, but 27 minutes, it's 3 minutes for Wemby is, it could be 12 fantasy points or something weird. And he puts up like a 7-8 block game against Boston, but I don't know, 10K on FanDuel, I'm getting 0%. The 8,700 on DraftKings is slightly appealing, I guess, but it's just that the ceiling is still so capped despite how good of a fantasy producer he is. And we have no shortage of studs on this slate. And so I don't think I'm getting there today. But I mean, if he puts up 50, no one's surprised, right?
No, not at all. It's just like, I don't know, would you rather get 40 potentially out of Portis and Lopez, in my eyes, than 50 out of Wemby at a higher price? That's kind of where I'm at, I guess. So,
yeah, I'd rather just take the shots on guys like Portis and Horford, play a couple of the value guards, play one of the pay up guards, and then one of the pay up forwards like LeBron or something.
Yeah, honestly, right now I'm kind of looking at the ownership now. I don't know, and I got to update this. Let me just refresh this because I don't believe that that's going to stay true with Orlando. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on if there's any like ownership fades, because it kind of seems like we might. Joe Ingles still chalk, Isaac still chalk, Anthony Davis, great match against Dallas. We can afford to play him.
Yeah, it was tough because, like I said, before we got this news, I was like, my builds were a lot more mid range, maybe getting one stud. But now we can play 2 studs, and we don't have to make we don't have to play a gross player in a couple of the spots. And if Joe Ingles, if this ownership holds, I'm going to be under for sure. I don't think I'm Xing him out of my pool, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to have anywhere close to this 40% on FanDuel, 32% on DraftKings. And then Jonathan Isaac, I probably X him out of my pool, though. It's might be a little bit risky, but I'll fade the 24% ownership on DraftKings.
Isaac's one of those players for me that if he was getting projected 20 minutes, and even if he was 4K, I'd be pretty happy to play him. But it's the fact that it's 15 minutes. That's too thin for me at that point.
Yeah, it seems like a guy who's going to be on a minutes limit forever. I mean, he's been back for a bit, and nothing's changed. He's right in that tight, like 14 to maybe 17-minute range, and we feel lucky if we get 17 minutes out of Isaac. So,
Yeah. Any other potential bigs that you wanted to mention at all, or anything like that?
bigs, I'm not sure. Scotty Barnes is still small forward eligible on both sides. I guess he's small forward, power forward on FanDuel. And we just got a question in the Discord. Does Siakam being traded move the needle on Barnes at all? I'm trying to pull up court IQ. It's not loading though. I mean, I would guess his usage goes up with Siakam off the court, but I want to see how it is with Quickly and Barrett both on the court too.
That's the issue. We don't have a big enough sample size just yet to really say what's going to happen, because you have two high usage rate players that were just traded to the team. RJ Barrett's going to shoot a lot. Quickly's been handling the basketball a lot. I mean, yeah, the day is going to say that with Pascal Siakam off the court, Scotty Barnes has a great game, but you also got to remember Jakob Poeltl's off the court as well. So I took a look at this earlier on in the day. It was a terrible sample size, so we have no idea. Okay, we do have an idea, but it'd be steering you guys, and that's not even true. It's just not a big enough sample size to say anything confidently. No, that's not the correct way to phrase it either. You know what I'm trying to say, though. It's not a big sample size, and it's just I guess that's just it. Like we can make educated guesses based off of what we expect, but it's not a big enough sample.
It's like if it was like a 10-15% usage difference with Pascal off and Barrett and Quickly on, then yeah, we could make inferences even if it's a small sample size. But if it's any tighter than that, then it tells us nothing. And so we probably need a couple more weeks to see what that is. But maybe Scotty Barnes. I mean, dude, this guy was, to me, he was almost a top 10 player in the NBA to start off this season. And then this trade just killed his usage. So we'll see. I still don't mind taking a couple shots on him. I think his price is still okay.
I do think I mentioned Jakob Poeltl being off the court. That's kind of a pivot that I'm making here. But like I don't want to say we almost need to play one of the bigs here, but like Thad Young, Porter, Boucher, Jakob Poeltl's off the court, Siakam's off the court. They're going up against Miami. They're going to need to get their bigs a little bit more run. I'm really shocked that it's only 19 and 21 minutes for Porter and Young. Like, just thinking about it even more, like, who the heck's going to guard Bam? Like, I guess they're just going to spread it out. Like, I don't know. That seems to me like a decent spot.
Well, it was kind of like in the when Toronto played the Lakers, they had Thad Young start, right? And no one thought that was going to work, but well, I'm pretty sure we jammed him in just because he was min priced, but it didn't work. I watched the game, and people thought Chris Boucher would come in. Chris Boucher didn't get the time, so I wouldn't expect him. Like, maybe he gets a few more minutes because Pascal's out, but he's not the guy that's going to come in and guard Bam tonight. And Jonte Porter, this guy kind of came out of nowhere, and he looks like a pretty decent basketball player. Michael Porter Jr.'s brother, and so it's complete guessing to put minutes on these Toronto bigs tonight. And so whoever starts is probably going to be the guy that they prefer to have out there to guard Bam. So I'd probably side with him. And then the other guy is going to be a decent GPP pivot.
Yeah. I honestly, if Porter's starting, I probably will have a decent amount of him. Just going back to forwards, does Jalen McDaniels get more run? Like, just thinking it through, I'm like, that could be another value play that we might potentially think about. I know the model didn't really pull him in too much, but
if he's pulling like 0% ownership, we're showing 1 and 0. 3,200. I mean, if he helps you fit the other guys, and then maybe we get lucky and he puts up 20 fantasy points or something, then yeah, Jalen McDaniels could work. But they haven't, even since that trade, they've had a need for a player like him at his size, and they haven't shown a willingness to really play him. Like, they're playing Thad Young over him. That's not a good sign.
Good point. Yeah. So yeah, we'll pivot on into the rest of the centers. Obviously, Toronto, it is kind of an interesting spot. Worthwhile there, but going against Miami, bigs probably don't need to worry about them too much. Speaking of that, yeah, Bam going against Jonte Porter, Thad Young, probably in a decent spot. He's looking like in fine play, OF index wise, about top 5 or so center wise. You got Julius Randle in there. Not as good of a play today with Brunson being fully healthy. It's kind of expected he might sit, maybe not. Jared Allen still appealing on FanDuel where he's power forward eligible, not too high priced. We already mentioned Wemby. We already mentioned AD. Brook Lopez not pulling in too much ownership. And then we do have Rudy Gobert in that good spot going against Detroit. And then also, I guess Nick Claxton's not on the slate. So what are your kind of initial thoughts for the center spot?
For center, I'm trying to see if I didn't have anyone really standing out. I mean, AD, I think he's still too cheap.
Yeah.
I was getting a bunch of Thad Young, assuming he starts, but the rest of center is kind of gross. I like Rudy Gobert over on DraftKings at 7K, pretty low owned. I imagine Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis are going to come up once I rerun my stuff. So, you know, what else can we do?
Yeah, honestly, I think that's it. Maybe a little bit of Porter. PJ Washington's expected back today, so kind of hurts Richards a little bit. But for me, it's probably Al Horford, Brook, Bobby. Then if I can pay up for Anthony Davis, that might be it. It might be very tight.
Yeah, I just did a quick rerun, and Al Horford is my highest exposed center over on DraftKings. And just sorting by OF index, he's pretty high up there for being 5,500, you know, sandwiched in between a bunch of guys that are 7K, over 6K. So, I mean, Brook Lopez is high up there too. So I think we got to pay attention to these guys. And there's not like AD is a pay up. Yeah, but there's not really another pay up center. So I don't mind getting to some of these mid-range centers who could have a 40 plus fantasy point ceiling.
And we already kind of mentioned with the guards, like we're kind of happy to eat the chalk there. With no one pulling in as too chalky for centers, that kind of makes me like that approach even more.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Isaac is still the highest projected owned over on DraftKings, which is just stupid. We have so many good options today. Why are we playing Jonathan Isaac and hoping for a blow-up game? He hasn't had a blow-up game. We're not expecting any more minutes. It just doesn't really make sense to me.
No, that doesn't make any sense. I'm refreshing on my end just to see here. Drew Holiday now, Sam Hauser, Pritchard. So not as much, but still 22%. So that's crazy. Sangoon is kind of chalk going against New York. That's interesting. Did someone get ruled out, or is it just like sticker shock? That's also interesting there.
Yeah, I mean, Sangoon under 8K. New York, They don't have Mitchell Robinson. Isaiah Hardenstein's not a slouch, and they have good team defense, but Sangoon is probably one of the few viable centers we have. I mean, Cat's pulling some ownership too. I don't mind him, but Anthony Edwards is in. But they're playing Detroit in what's the spread there? 12.5. It's close to blowout, and yeah, Pistons are getting blown out like every game. They've been better recently, but they don't like Cat either. I think I prefer Gobert though if we're playing one of them.
I agree there. So again, I don't have the comments pulling in right now. I don't know if you see any. We can highlight those. If not, we'll get into kind of a first look build.
Well, Michael says Middleton sucks. You know what? And Middleton.
What?
He's a. I don't know. People were kind of iffy on him coming in. Hey, Bucks hat. I love it.
Those are fighting words right there.
Yeah, I think Middleton's great. His usage is good. Without Giannis, his usage should go up. Like, I wish I could pull it up right now, but Core IQ is not loading for me. And then any thoughts on Crowder as an Ingles pivot? So we only have him projected for, I believe, 13 minutes. I think around the industry, he's projected for a little bit more, but he still doesn't grade out very well. And so this is like a really high risk pivot. I think there's other low owned value plays we can get to, other low owned guys we can get to get different. That Jay Crowder's not necessary today, but I don't completely hate it. I mean, our minutes production could be off by, if it's off by like 7 minutes, he ends up getting 19, 20 minutes, and that seems pretty good. But he hasn't played a game since, I believe, November. So it is pretty risky. And it's not like they have to play him. They have Bobby Portis and I guess Pat Connaughton, who they can still run. So,
yeah. I mean, if I didn't see anything like confirming a specific minutes limit today, I'm sure there's something out there, but like if you're searching on Twitter before that game locks and no news has come out on like him having a specific minutes limit, then sure, maybe go for it, and maybe the projections are off. We have seen that happen occasionally thus far this season, where it's like likely that they'd have a minutes limit, but then it doesn't end up being significant. I forget who it was. It was like, oh, he's going to play 28 minutes, ended up playing like 35 minutes. And it's just like, that's not a minutes limit. That was at the beginning of the season. But Jay Crowder, sure. like the thing about it is like you could easily just play Bobby Portis, you could play Andre Jackson, Beauchamp, someone that could get minutes as well. Like there are safer routes that you can go to. And then if that news comes or doesn't come, you can make a proper pivot. So if you do like Jay Crowder, again, risky, but know that you got Connaughton that's safer, Jackson that's safer. If more news comes out, you got proper pivots on the Bucks alone.
Yeah, I was trying to see if I could find a points, rebounds, assist line for him, but he doesn't even have props available. So Vegas has no idea what's going to happen tonight either.
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of go ahead, unless there's more questions. I was going to say we could do a first look build.
No, let's go ahead and jump into the build.
All right. So the question is, which chalk do we eat? And there's a lot of great leverage spots for sure. So I'll let you do the first kind of picks, if you will, because I kind of know my thoughts, but I'm curious yours.
I think Al Horford is the first person I want to put in our lineup. No preference between power. Maybe if we're playing Rudy Gobert at center, then we can put Al Horford in the power forward spot. And then I feel like we should play at least one of Drew Holiday or Peyton Pritchard, if not both.
Okay.
And then
I like Drew a little bit more at his price.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. I think at Peyton Pritchard's price, Andrew's price, I think we can play both. We don't necessarily have to do it in the first look build, but if you're watching this, then I think that it's fine to play them both together.
So I agree. I'm gonna put them in there. Like Pritchard should be able to hit value in this game for sure. They both should be able to, and I'm fine loading up on 3 Boston players. My next thing here is that I want to load up on the Bucks next. I know it's not the best matchup, but like to me, Brook Lopez is too cheap, Middleton's too cheap, and then Lillard's too cheap. So we still have a lot of salary left over by doing that. Like to me, this is somewhat of an obvious build, but there also is the Toronto value that we have. You could play Portis. You mentioned Rudy Gobert as a center play. Like there's definitely other routes that we can go, but what are your thoughts on those 3 plays? Are you fine with this for the first look build?
No, I love this. So for large field, I'm thinking this might be a little too chalky. And I mean, we can throw in I really want to throw in Jalen Johnson as our low end piece since it's model approved. But
that's fine.
If you're playing small field, this is this is the core today. These are just the easiest plays to make. We don't really have to. I don't think we really have to worry about any of them.
Yeah, and then honestly, who could we toss in Barnes quickly, Barrett, or Porter or Schroeder for Toronto? Because obviously it's a lot of value there as well potentially.
Yeah, I'd be okay with Barnes or Barrett. They seem to be a little bit lower owned, and we already have those other guys filling in the guard spots. But I mean, Quickly's price is pretty good too. So any 2 of those 3, I'm okay with. Or I don't know if we can fit 2 of them, can we?
I mean, we could pivot off of someone if we wanted to. I don't know if you said you liked Barrett a little bit more than, let's say, Middleton at his price. I wouldn't talk you out of it. Same thing with. No, I would talk you out of it for Lillard compared to Quickly, but
yeah, let's take Middleton out since we have Lillard and Brook Lopez in there.
Okay, that's fine. And then so Barrett or Barnes, which one? I guess.
Let's start with Barrett and see what kind of salary that leaves us.
Okay. I'm going to toss in Quickly if we can, just to see.
Leaves us 6,100 at the forward.
Bobby Portis.
It's Bobby Portis music. I will mention Max Strus. He's been bad lately, but he's going to come in really low ownership if you're looking for a low-owned guy, and we're already running a bunch of Milwaukee guys anyway. But yeah, Max Strus was one of my favorite tournament plays to get to. I think Jalen Johnson has overtaken that role, but just because Max Strus hasn't shown up in a bit doesn't mean he can't anymore.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the game against Brooklyn got injured, and then in between that, 2 horrible night shooting. So I don't hate that call.
I'm seeing 35 and 37 minutes, and if no one's going to take the chance on that, I will.
For sure there. I'm just seeing a potential pivot for the first look build. Hauser. If we want to go Barnes instead and have Quickly in there. I mean, this is the issue with tonight's slate. You could go Pat Connaughton there as well. It's just so many little different lineup paths you can make to have a really good build.
I think the path that I'm going to try to go in my lineups is so earlier we had no value, so I was trying to find value pivots, but now we have some pretty good value. So I think I want to play the chalk value, just like we did in the first look build, and then get different with some of the pay ups. And it doesn't necessarily mean just the top studs, but like guys above 7K, maybe above 6K. Just mix those guys up and should be pretty good. You don't have to go crazy. You can play a bunch of the chalk pieces tonight. They're going to be chalk because they're very strong.
Well, like, to your point, like Luka is popping in as the best play on the slate. OF index rating of 15.3, which is relatively high. Coming in at 9% owned, he's under 11K on DraftKings specifically. Probably a little bit too priced up on FanDuel, but like there's enough salary to you could probably pay it for 80 and Luka if you really wanted to. Maybe you get 120 combined with those two, and that's already seemingly unique on the slate.
Yeah, it's like Luka has probably the highest ceiling in the whole NBA, right?
Yeah.
But the problem with him today is that we have so many good guard values that even if Luka puts up, a 65 ball or something over on DraftKings or just a super high score or whatever, it's pretty likely that another stud at the forward or center position puts up a good score. And we have so much value at the guard position that some of them are going to go off. So it's kind of like, yeah, if you like Luka, play him, whatever. But I think we have better value at the guard spot. And so it just makes more sense, I think, to pay up for the forwards. But if you do build that way with Luka at the guard spot, you fade the guard value, hope that they fail. Then you have a contrarian build, and you're kind of getting double leverage that way.
I mean, I don't even know if you need to fade the guard value because, like, I don't know. Do you consider Drew Holiday a value, I guess?
At this point,
okay,
yeah.
You do. Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. So never mind then. Like I thought you were referring to like players below like 5K or 4K. So.
Yeah, most of the time I would be. But even like when I was saying that, I was imagining even like Damian Lillard because his price is probably over $1,000 cheaper than he would be if DraftKings knew Giannis was going to be out 2 days ago or whatever, right?
Yeah, for sure. This is a fun slate for sure. Let's see here. I'll do the Discord chat plug here, and then we'll kind of give our final thoughts on tonight's slate. So first and foremost, guys, this video flew by pretty fast. So we might not have been able to cover all your questions. Obviously, we weren't able to do that today. So head on over to the Discord chat right after this video. It's going to be going live pretty much right now. 30 minutes before lock is when we go live on the Discord chat. So head on over there. Link to join that is going to be in the description below. And again, it's going to be a little bit more personal today since we couldn't answer a lot of questions that the general public had. But yeah, link to join that is in the description below.
And Unicorn Love asking about Sam Merrill on FanDuel at 4,700. So I was getting like 30% Sam Merrill before we got this news. I was fading Joe Ingles. I don't hate it. He's not going to be in play as much as he was earlier, but if he's going to come in at 3 and 6%, it sounds so dumb, but he has shown a ceiling. And if for some reason you're trying to get away from a couple pieces of the chalk value, then Sam Merrill is not the worst GPP value play.
I'm going to say no because Pat Connaughton is not chalked too much just yet. Let me see if that's still true. And he's the exact same play at like $500 cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So like shot dependent,
I would say the difference between them though is we can project Sam Merrill for more minutes
a little bit more
than Connaughton. And I guess, without Giannis, there's so much usage to go around on the Bucks. But Sam Merrill's been playing consistently over 20 minutes. He's been putting up decent fantasy scores. Are we expecting 30 plus fantasy points? Probably not. But if he allows you to fit the rest of your lineup and he puts up just what he's been averaging recently, which is around 24, 25, then I think that could work out.
I gotta look because like, all right, I'm looking at right now. I'd rather go Hauser, Pritchard, Lowry. I'd rather go Pat Connaughton. Data kind of, I don't know. It's gonna be unique, that's for sure.
Yeah, especially considering ownership. I don't know. I might have a bias towards Sam Hauser, but it's just good minutes, bad fantasy producer, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are still there. Al Horford's still there. Drew Holiday's still on the court, and it's like, Sam Merrill's playing next to Donovan Mitchell and Max Strus, and I think was Karis LeVert out today? No, Karis is in. Nice. And so if you're playing him, it's a GPP play. There's a reason he's under 10% owned. But if you take shots, I mean, that's how we try and finish near the top of GPP. It doesn't work out today. Maybe it'll work out next time.
Yeah, no, for sure. Final thoughts for today's slate. I'm just going to do another data refresh here. Seeing if we have any anything that's significantly changed? I don't think so. I'm looking at the news, nothing too crazy just yet. Still getting that Orlando chalk. So interesting there on both sides for the most part. So very interesting. Say, what are your closing thoughts?
Don't shy away from the chalk today. It's good chalk. There's enough good low owned pieces that you can play all the chalk with like two guys under 10% in large fields and still give yourself a pretty good chance of competing for first. You have to hit the right chalk, but just mix them up.
100%. I'll close it off with saying go Bucks, but for real, play the Bucks. I think those are easy plays, and then a little bit of Toronto. I like Toronto as well. So Bucks, Toronto, and obviously Boston.
Yep. Let's get it, guys. Good luck today.
Yep. Good luck, everyone. Thanks for being here.